Hello everyone, this is Rumple Foreskin 74 again, and we are playing Battletech. Today I wanted to do a quick little video on some of my favorite mechs that I use on a regular basis, because I've had several people ask me about what mechs I prefer. So, without going into a lot of detail and getting caught up into a lot of the weeds of the game, let's go ahead and look at some of the stuff that I prefer to use on a regular basis here. So we're going to go to our mech bay, and we're going to start out with the light mechs. There are a lot of the flash points that require you to use lighter tonnage mechs, um, and they have tonnage restrictions as far as maximum tonnage that is available. So you need to have some lighter mechs available to you. So what I like to do is there are two mechs that I like to use that are um, pretty common mechs for the game here. One of them is the urban mech. Um, Urbies are not really encountered anywhere in the game except in a couple of shops. You can buy partial salvages, that sort of thing. Um, and Urbies are notorious for being slow, but Urbies are hands down some of the best uh, light mechs in this game, without a doubt. They can be much more heavily armored than a lot of other light mechs. They are notorious for being slow, however, and that comes from the fact that they are primarily designed to be a urban or city defender. Um, in a city environment, urban mechs rule. They are second to none. Um, as long as you're going up against other light mechs or even some medium mechs, because the armor that urban mechs can carry is pretty close to what a medium mech carries, to be honest. Um, so they can actually go toe to toe with some medium mechs. And if you look at the urban mech that I normally have in my arsenal here, um, let's go over what I have here for him, because if you'll see the first thing that you notice is I have all of his armor is maxed out, um, with the exception of the legs. Um, and that is because these little guys, they are known to be rough and tumble little, uh, just troopers, and they can really take a beating. Versus other light mechs, these guys are without par. I'm telling you, they can trash an entire lance of light mechs like spiders, javelins. These guys are total lance killers against guys like that. Um, Now, the second thing that you might notice is what I have as far as weaponry. I have an AC2 plus plus plus. I have two of those. Most of your urban mechs come standard with an AC20, believe it or not. Um, the AC20 is actually it's pretty heavy, and it decreases the amount of armor you can carry on an urban mech. But if you get close, it will destroy a light mech in one shot. I mean, it is a mech killer. I have opted to go with the lighter AC2s, and I also have a medium laser plus plus over here that has plus 10 damage on it. Um, and that is just for a closer range defense. But the AC2s I have, I use this guy as a long range sniper. I have a rangefinder plus plus, which gives me a plus 100 meter view distance. Um, And what this guy is extremely good at is this guy can, if you're running around in the city on your mech, and this guy sees you on his sensors, he can duck out from behind a building, and he can deal a tremendous amount of damage. I mean, you're hitting 50 points of damage right there, and if you're a light mech, 50 points of damage is a pretty good bit. I'll be able to hit you, take a couple of hits, and by the time you get close enough to me to do any kind of damage, you're probably Swiss cheese. So this guy works out really well for me. There are some other variants that I've tried, but you're kind of limited with an Irby because of the hard points that it has. It has ballistic hard points, and it only has 2 laser hard points. I actually experimented one time with an Irby that had I think it was short range weapons only. The problem with that is everything had to get right up on me for me to even attack it, and that is not a good scenario at all. So this guy here is he works out pretty good for me. So anyways, if you're a fan of the Irby, try it out and see what you think. I would welcome any kind of comments as to the other kind of build, other builds that are out there that people use for Irbies. I know they have a fan following, so if you guys have any kind of builds that are different than mine, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to try them out. The second light mech that I really like to use is a, if it'll ever get off of this screen here, okay, is a fire starter. I really like the fire starters. They are hands down some of the most like OP light mechs that you can have. These guys are super fast, they are super maneuverable, and you can arm them to the absolute teeth. This is one of my standard standard builds right here that I carry for one of my fire starters. And as you see, it doesn't have a ton of armor. It has a little bit. If you notice, the rear has like 5, 5, 5. It's very, very. This is basically a glass cannon. This mech is bar none. It is fragile, but it is a super damage dealer. It is super maneuverable, and I mean, if you notice, my movement is my maximum movement is 165 meters, and my maximum sprint is 275 meters. My jump is 150 meters. That is a lot. Okay, so my movement is way up there. My firepower is my maximum damage is 240 points of damage. For a light mech, that's huge. That is huge. You're basically looking at a 2.5 auto cannon 20 strikes right there just from a light mech. So that is pretty substantial. Now, obviously, this comes at a huge cost for heat. I only sink about 30 points of heat, but my Alpha Strike generates 72 points of heat. So, you know, if I do an Alpha Strike, that puts me almost close to being shut down. So these are for strategic strikes. These fire starters, basically what I do is I run in. I'll reserve my actions until the end of a round, and then I'll, because with a light mech, you can reserve until the end of the round, and then you'll get to act again first in the beginning of the round. So basically, you get two actions back to back. So what I'll do is I'll reserve until the end of a round, and I'll sprint in and get behind somebody, and then on my first attack of the round, I'll alpha strike someone in the back, and normally, if I have a precision strike, and I can hit the same spot repeatedly, um, normally uh, not many mechs can survive that. I routinely, and this is absolutely the truth, I routinely take out heavier medium and lighter heavy mechs with this tactic all the time, all the time. Not even kidding about that at all. Um, the the mech is what I have too to help facilitate that is I normally run with a squad of 3 or 4 of these guys. Every single one of them has a comm system. The comm systems help you make more precision strikes, because that is key to being able to use these guys. If you don't have the precision strikes, because these guys are like a laser scalpel. They are made to slice and dice and destroy strategic points on a mech. If you don't have the resolve to do a precision strike, these mechs are going to be pretty ineffective. Unless you're fighting something like a turret that only has one basic, like a center torso type deal where all the damage goes to one spot. In which case they work good against turrets and stuff like that too. Um, I've had missions where I've been up against turrets, and I've had my guys come running in at the end of the round, and the next action that they take, they alpha strike a turret, and you don't even have to do a precision strike, because there's only one point of damage for a turret. So my guys come in, they run in, then on their next attack they do a precision, or not a precision strike, but an alpha strike on a turret or a structure, and normally take it out. Basically, what you're looking at is burst damage that's comparable to heavy or even assault mech attacks um, from a light mech. So that's what makes these guys so effective, is because things that are uh, in their weight range, they just way outclass them as far as the damage potential. Now the heat does become an issue, um, so you have to manage that accordingly. If you're in a highly congested area, you're going to need to lure things out one by one and cut them up, because otherwise those mechs will not work for that. Now there was a variant that I used at one time. I had a fire starter that was it was equipped with a bunch of flamers, and it worked pretty good. I'm not going to lie. But there were a lot of limitations with that one, and they just became a little bit harder to, as the game became a little more dynamic with some of the missions, they were harder and harder to try to effectively use. So, because I effectively had no real long range weaponry, and you don't with the one that I just showed everybody. It's all medium lasers and machine guns, so it's all medium range and closer. Uh, so the next light mech that I want to talk about is not really, this one is a little bit out of the ordinary, so it is not like a common mech. Um, the next one that I want to talk about is the Raven. I don't know if you haven't done the Flashpoint yet to get the Raven. I highly recommend that you do that, because this one little mech is going to be a game changer for you. This mech takes a little bit of getting used to effectively use it properly. But once you master how to use this mech, it is bar none probably the most valuable mech that will be in your arsenal. Not even kidding at all. And what makes this mech so special is this is just it's a small 35-ton mech. Doesn't really have, it has 4 laser hard points, 1 missile hard point, 4 support hard points, and 5 jump jet hard points. So it's pretty standard stuff, pretty standard fare for a light mech. It's not anything really that uncommon. But what it does have is it has a experimental electronic countermeasure and area sensor equipment package that is, I guess, tied to this mech. You can't. This equipment is non-interchangeable. You can't put it on any other mech, which kind of sucks because, man, I'll be honest with you, if I had this on one of my Atlases, oh my god. Yeah, the game would be broken at that point. But this equipment package, basically what it does is it provides interference for targeting. Like, basically it makes you, it's like stealth equipment. It makes your Raven and a small area around you basically immune to target locks. So it makes it impossible for enemies to lock a weapon onto you. So basically what that means is that they cannot target you with any kind of long-range weaponry. And I know everybody's probably thinking, oh my god, how does that not totally destroy the game? Because there are limitations to this, okay? When you have your Raven in your group, when you get these stealth charges, okay? Your Raven gets 2 charges. Everyone else in your area gets 1 charge. Now, you lose these charges by taking offensive actions, or if you run out of the area of the electronic countermeasure field, you lose the charge, etc. So if your mech sensor locks somebody, you lose the charge. And you can then be targeted. If your mech shoots at somebody, you lose a charge, and you can then be targeted. Now, the Raven itself, he gets, or the Raven mech gets 2 charges. Now, what that means is that your Raven can run up to somebody within a certain amount of range, fire on them, lose 1 charge, and still be untargetable. The Raven is very versatile in that respect. A lot of times I use my Raven as a finisher. I'll do an alpha strike on somebody, and because of the fact that they're guarded or whatever, it doesn't do quite as much damage as I thought it would do, and they end up with, say, like 20 points left on the center torso. Okay, well, what I do is when my Raven comes up, and it always comes up before all my other mechs because it's so much lighter. When it comes up for its initiative in its action phase, I just simply target the center torso of the mech that I just attacked and was not able to down in 1 shot or 2 shots or whatever it's been. And I take out those last 20 points with my Raven. And then my Raven remains untargetable, even though he just took an offensive action. So I use him or I use the Raven in that respect a lot. Um, Now, another thing that makes your Raven is going to make it a lot more effective is if you put a rangefinder in your Raven. I happen to have a very rare rangefinder. It is a rangefinder plus plus plus. It gives me a 120-meter view area. So that is huge. Basically, if I can detect something, I can see it. Um, so that also makes the Raven very effective as a scout. That's almost imperative that you put a rangefinder in these things. Um, the other aspect of the equipment package that comes with the Raven, and this I don't use as much. I've used it maybe once or twice. Um, is it has an active probe ability. And this active probe. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned too. The other weakness to the electronic countermeasures is someone can sensor lock you, and if they sensor lock you, you lose all of your charges for stealth. So that is the other countermeasure to the electronic countermeasures. Um, Now, the Raven has a deal kind of like a sensor lock built into it. It's called an active probe ability, and what this actually does is the active probe is like an area sensor lock, um, and what it does is every mech within a certain area is like it's sensor locked. Now, I have not ever tried to pilot one of my Ravens without a pilot that has the sensor lock ability. But one of my followers told me that they have a Raven and they have a pilot that does not have a sensor lock ability, and the Raven is what he uses to sensor lock opponents. That active probe ability is what he uses uh, to sensor lock things, and he does not even have to train his pilot to sensor lock. Excuse me. So if that's true, and I have not tried that out yet, so I don't know if that's true or not. Um, but if that's true, then that could be a possible big bonus as well, because you don't have to spend a bunch of time and experience training your pilot to do sensor locking. You can train your pilot to be something else, like an ace pilot and a master tactician, um, or a gladiator, or whatever. You can train them to do whatever, and this is like a third ability that you could have on your pilot. So that could be a huge advantage as well. Um, but if you look at my Raven, I pretty much have the armor maxed out because I don't want to lose this little mech no matter what. Um, the only part that I do not have maxed out is there is a arm on the left side of the Raven that has no hard points whatsoever. I don't have any kind of equipment, ammo, anything over there, so that's like a dummy arm as far as I'm concerned. So I only put minimal armor on that so that I could put extra armor in the places that it mattered. Um, Other than that, I have an SRM 4 plus plus plus, and I have two medium lasers. Um, so if you look at the firepower, I only do about 118 points of damage from an alpha strike. Um, but I don't have any heat sinks. Um, I because this equipment package weighs 7.5 tons. Um, so I don't have any extra anything. I don't even have jump jets on this thing, and I kind of have regretted that a couple of times. And I'm actually thinking about putting two jump jets on it. just to give it a little bit of flight capability and make it a little more versatile. But I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. So, okay, so enough about the Raven. If you don't have it, go get it. It's a game changer. Trust me, you'll love it. Um, it really turns the tide, especially in some of these flashpoints that have a bunch of consecutive deployments. You need to be able to be untargetable in order to survive all of that stuff. Um, so, anyways, that's enough about the Raven. Um, Next, we're going to go to medium mechs. Um, there are a couple of mechs that I like here in the medium category. The first one is the Centurion AL. The AL is a variant model of the normal Centurion, and I know people have their own favorite mechs. I just like the Centurion. I'm more of a slugfest, punch them out, rough and tumble kind of combat guy. So I'm not real big on like the mobility and the movement and all that crap. But some people are, and they prefer stuff like griffins and stuff like that. Hey, man, to each their own. Everybody has their own combat style, and I'm not knocking one or another. This is just what I prefer. So if you have a different mech with a different loadout and different configuration that works better for you, hey, by all means, it's just a game and it is for fun. So whatever works for you is great. So this is the loadout that I normally have configuration for my Centurion. And like I said, this is the Centurion AL, the CN9-AL. And it has 4 laser hard points, 2 missile hard points, 3 support, and 4 jump jet. So what I've done is I've put 2 medium laser plus pluses with the plus 10 damage on the right arm. I've got a SRM and LRM ammo in the right torso. I don't like to normally do that too much because that creates a weak spot for someone to, basically tear off my torso, and then I lose half of my weaponry. Um, but the good thing about this guy is he also has in his center torso, he has some backup for that. He has 2 other medium laser plus pluses in his center torso, and he also has a flamer plus plus. The flamer plus plus I put on there to give him an extra punch for when he does hand-to-hand combat. Because with this guy, with these Centurions, these guys are pretty rough and tumble. They can take a lot of damage, and I don't mind getting, because I only have medium lasers and short range. The only long range weapon I have is an LRM 10. So my damage is mostly confined to being within standard range or less. So I don't have a problem doing hand-to-hand with these guys, and they're actually pretty good at it. Their melee hits are pretty substantial. So that's why I added the Flamer Plus Plus. And this one does 15 heat damage, which is pretty substantial. 15 heat is not anything to shake a stick at. That's a lot. If you're already, like, say, if you're in a Kintaro or something, 15 heat is gonna push you over the edge. It's gonna shut you down, and it's probably gonna do frame damage to you. So that's pretty substantial. I have 4 heat sinks in my legs. I have a cockpit mod plus 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 for 3 injury resist in my head. And then I have an SRM 6 plus 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 and an LRM 10 plus plus. The SRM 6 is plus 4 damage and plus 2 stability damage. And then the LRM 10 is the plus 2 damage. So it actually does 6 to 60 damage. or 10 to 60. No, yeah, 10 to 60 damage. So that's pretty substantial. Other than that, I have the armor is pretty beefed up, um, and that's pretty much it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, um, but it's a pretty solid performer. Um, as I said before, I'm not a real big fan of the jump jets and stuff because they build up a tremendous amount of heat, and heat is always your enemy. So I try to stay away from them as much as I can. Um, I realize that there are certain situations where jump jets make a lot of sense, and I don't have a problem using them. I just don't like them on anything heavier than like a light mech because I just don't think it makes much sense. Um, some mediums, maybe. Um, but for the most part, I don't like to use jump jets that much, and I don't really have much problems um, with that. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to get to where I want to go, but no big deal, you know. All right, so the next mech that I want to talk about is also a medium mech, and this one is uh, most of you are familiar with it. It is the Hunchback 4P. Um, let me see if I can find it here. Okay, here we go. All right. So the Hunchback 4P, as most of you are probably already aware, the Hunchback comes with the big auto cannon on its shoulder, and most of its weapons are located right there in that right torso. Okay, well they have a variant called the HBK-4P, and that is the laser version of the Hunchback, affectionately called the Disco Ball Hunchback because of all the lasers coming out of this guy. Basically, you are looking at 6, 7, 8 lasers, 8 medium lasers coming out of this guy at one time. Um, so that is a lot of damage. The problem is that is also a lot of heat. Um, so if you look at this guy, the first thing you'll notice is, of course, I have maxed out the armor because armor is survivability. So that's one of the first things that I do. I've added a cockpit mod with a +2 injury resist for this guy. Um, he has a gyro minus 30% stability damage, which is pretty big because a lot of times I'll use this guy against heavy or even assault mechs, and they'll do a lot of stability damage against you, so you have to be able to resist that. Um, Otherwise, every single one of these lasers on this guy are medium laser pluses with the +10 damage. So if you look at the fact that I have 8 plus lasers, that is an extra 80 damage right off the rip. Okay. So as far as firepower goes, my maximum damage is 280 from a medium mech. That is pretty huge. Uh, Now, as far as heat efficiency, it's pretty middle of the road. Um, I sink 63 heat, and my Alpha Strike generates 96. Um, so, yeah, that's pretty substantial. But otherwise, you wouldn't be able to use this guy. Um, So this guy here is he is pretty beast. Um, I like him a lot. He's super duper effective, and I mean when you do a precision strike with this guy, and all 8 lasers are shooting against something, um, that's pretty beast, man. So anyways, this is my build for my Hunchback. Uh, and I know this is kind of a fan favorite. A lot of people really like this. I've seen other builds too where people add like some small lasers and stuff like that. Um, to be quite honest, you only have like 2 other spots to put a laser on this guy, so I try to keep the heat a little bit manageable. Um, you add another 2 small lasers, I mean, the heat is just kind of over the top at that point because you're way over 100. Um, so this is the build that I like. If you start putting like machine guns and that kind of stuff, I don't know. I guess that's possible, but the damage output is already so high from this guy that I think you're just really you could use that tonnage for other stuff like armor. So I don't really know that the benefit is really there. Because for one thing, machine guns, you need to really reduce somebody's armor and get to their internal structure for machine guns to really, really shine. Um, that's where they do their best work. So really, when you're at that point, you know, if you're close enough, just go ahead and punch them. These guys have a really good melee attack too. So, if you're close enough to hit them with a machine gun, you're close enough to hit them with a fist. So just go ahead and punch them. Um, but then, anyways, like I said, this guy here, he works really good for me. Um, like I said, I know a lot of people like him. Um, I love this guy. This guy is one of my tried and true performers. Really can't say enough good stuff about this build. All right, so now we're going to move on to heavy mechs. I have a couple of heavy mechs that are my favorites here. One of the most reliable mechs that I have in the heavy category, the first one we're going to talk about, is the Orion. The Orion is hands down, man, it is a solid performer in the heavy department. I know a lot of heavy mechs are good, solid performers, but as far as versatility goes, man, you really can't beat an Orion. They're heavy enough that you can put a lot of good armor and weapons on them. You can have a variety of stuff, and they can do a lot of different things. So, it doesn't look like okay. So normally this one, I don't know, maybe I was doing something with this one. Okay, so if you look, the first thing you'll notice is the armor is pretty much maxed out on this Orion. It's a pretty heavy mech to begin with as far as armor goes. It adds a lot of armor. And then what I normally do is I have a medium laser plus with a plus 10 damage on the right arm. I have an AC 10 plus on the right torso. Then I have a minus 30% stability damage gyro in the center. I have an LRM 15 plus on the left torso, and I have an SRM 4 plus. And I also have the ammo there. I also keep the AC 10 ammo in the other torso to try to keep it protected. And then I also have the medium laser plus with the plus 10 damage on the left arm. Normally I keep a cockpit mod on this guy. Not sure why I don't have it on here today. Maybe I was swapping them around for something. I don't know. But I normally run cockpit mods on just about everything unless it's a special application mech. So this is typically what I have as a loadout for my mech. The only problem that you'll have with this guy is heat. Heat can be an issue with this Orion. So, what I try to do is he has some long-range capability. The long-range capability is not that much though. I mean, you're basically LRMs and AC-10. Um, so those two weapons firing, you're not going to build up a ton of heat. You'll be able to manage that. Where you're going to have issues is when you start getting up close to things. You're not going to be able to do alpha strike after alpha strike after alpha strike with this guy. This guy just does not have the heat sinks for it. Um, just doesn't have it. And that's the trade-off with this guy. Um, the other thing is the silver lining to that though is this guy has really good melee capability. Um, so if you start getting close enough to be doing alpha strike after alpha strike with this guy, with the SRMs and the medium lasers and all that, go ahead and do your alpha strike and then close and start meleeing with somebody, because that's what this guy was designed to do, was to be a brawler and close assault mech. Um, so, you know, that's where they really shine. They can pelt things a little bit from far off, but they're not going to do a ton of damage from, you know, a mile and a half away. It's just not going to happen. So once you get in close, do your alpha strike or whatever, then melee. While you're meleeing, your heat is going to be dissipating. Then you can do another alpha strike. But you're not going to be doing alpha strike after alpha strike every single round. It's not going to happen. So that's the only limitation with this guy. But if you like that kind of stuff and you know how to use him, they can be effective. They can be very effective in combat. I like him as a a good solid backup performer to like if one of my atlases is down or whatever, getting repaired or refitted or whatever, I'll throw this guy in just to have another heavy damage soaker. And they're durable enough that they can take some hits. So the other mech that I like to use that's in the heavy category is a Thunderbolt. Thunderbolts are very, very versatile mechs. You can do a lot with a Thunderbolt. I've seen a lot of people with a lot of different configurations for Thunderbolts, and they work. They all seem to work pretty good, to be quite honest. I mean, this is probably one of the best mechs out there in the heavy category. You can do so much with this guy. If you notice, like I have all my armor is pretty much maxed out. I got an LRM 15 plus on the right torso. Center torso is where I keep my LRM ammo, a couple of heat sinks. There is a large laser and two medium laser pluses on the left torso. On the left arm, there's an AC2 plus. So this guy has capabilities all throughout the gamut here. They have a long range ability with the AC2 and the LRMs and the large laser 2. Not extreme range, but long, still respectable. So if this guy can get a bead on you, he can pretty much attack you. Then, as he gets closer, his burst damage is going to even go up even higher because, you got the medium lasers. And then, if he gets right up on you, I mean, this guy's 65 tons. That is a respectable amount of tonnage there. That guy, he has a good melee combat. Plus, a lot of people put jump jets on these guys. Personally, I don't. I don't like jump jets on anything heavier than like 50 tons, really, to be honest. I just don't think it's really that effective. You you waste a lot of energy and you just build up a ton of heat. But this guy this guy has respectable range and capability all throughout the spectrum. So if he can get a bead on you, he can hit you, he can touch you, and his weapons do pretty good damage. Um, Even at like extreme range, you're looking at an LRM 15 um, that does 4 times 15, so you're looking at 60 points of damage. The AC2 does another 30, so you're looking at 90. If you're within range of the large laser, you're looking at another 50. So you're looking at 140 points of damage, between 100 to 140 points of damage at extreme and long range. That's a good punch, man, from being that far away. What? That is pretty formidable, especially for a lighter and heavy mech. I mean, this 65 tons, which is heavy, but not extremely heavy. There's a lot of mechs out there that are 10 tons heavier, but this guy can go toe to toe with all of them. So that's why I like this guy. They're very versatile. They have a lot of different loadouts. You can configure them a bunch of different ways. They have good hard points. They got 2 ballistics, 4 laser, 2 missile, 2 support, and 4 jump jets. So I mean, whatever you want, however you want to configure this guy, he has a little something to offer everybody. Oh, and before I forget, this is the Thunderbolt TDR5S variant. So very, very versatile mech. I like them a lot. They're fast enough to get into a lot of places, and they're heavy enough to really pack a punch when they do get in there. So I like them a lot, like I said. And they have good melee. I mean, they're so well-rounded of a mech. And now we are getting into my personal favorite as far as BattleTech mechs in this game, the assault mechs. I have played this game for years and years and years. I was a fan of this game when it was a tabletop. I played City Tech, Urban Tech, Aerotech, BattleTech, played them all, and always had an Atlas. The Atlas is by far my favorite mech in this entire game. The Atlas that I like playing the most is the AS7D-HT, the Atlas 2, which is the old Star League Atlas that you get from the campaign. And you guys will see when it pulls up. You'll see what kind of a configuration I have. So this Atlas here is it's pretty much my mainstay as far as my assault mech. This guy has pretty much maximum armor. There's only like a couple of points off on the rear. Everywhere else is maxed out. It has a lot of Star League equipment on here, double heat sinks. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 double heat sinks. And I have if you look here on the right torso, instead of the autocannon, I have a Gauss rifle, the heavy Gauss rifle, which does a little bit less damage, but it's a lot more. It has a lot more range, and the repeatability of it is much better because it doesn't get the recoil effect that the autocannons do. So it also doesn't build up hardly any heat whatsoever. So that's the good things. So as you notice, I got a lot of large lasers. I got a medium laser over here on the right arm. I have a large laser plus plus plus. I have a medium laser plus plus, double heat sink, and 2 normal heat sinks. That's on my right arm. On the right torso, I have a double heat sink. I have 2 bins of Gauss ammo and a heavy Gauss rifle. I have a cockpit mod for 3 injury on the head. Center torso, I have a gyro plus plus for minus 30% stability damage, and I have a medium laser plus plus plus. On the left torso, I have an LRM 20 plus plus plus, yeah, 3 pluses, an SRM 6 plus plus, a normal heatsink, and a double heatsink. And then on my left arm, I have a large laser plus plus plus. I have SRM ammo, LRM ammo, 2 LRM ammos, and a double heatsink. And then on both of my legs, I have 1 normal heatsink and 1 double heatsink. So as far as this guy goes, firepower is maxed out. His maximum damage from an Alpha Strike is 387 points. And the stability damage is 138. Movement, of course, with all Atlases, he is very slow, but he is a juggernaut, so he is not designed to go fast. Durability is, the structure is 761 points. Armor is 1,760. Stability is 30%, and when I do a death from above, the self-damage is 125. So, but I'm not doing that because I don't have jump jets. So that's not happening. As far as heat efficiency, I sink 81 points of heat, and my Alpha Strike generates 95 points of heat. So I can pretty much, and in the right environment, I can do an Alpha Strike every single round. That is huge. With this guy pumping out that kind of damage every single round, there's not much that's going to be able to stand up to that for any kind of length of time. Not even another assault mech. You're not going to be able to do it. The average range is 660 meters. Optimal range is about half that. And then my melee, my base damage is 100. My chassis quirk is 40, so total damage is 140. That's pretty good for melee. So that is my mainstay Atlas, and it works very, very well. It is very effective. If I had an entire lance of these guys, there would be nothing in this game that could stop me. And then the next mech that is my absolute favorite, that is in the assault mech category, is if the screen will ever change, okay, is my Highlander, my Star League Highlander. I like the Highlanders in general. I think they're pretty versatile. They do have one significant weak point, though, is they tend to have a lot of weapons and armor in one location, and that is kind of a weak link for them. And that's all on that right torso. That right torso tends to be a weak spot for them. but other than that, I think it's a great mech overall. Um, I have this one here is like I said, this is the Highlander, the HGN 732B. This is the Star League uh, mech that you get from the campaign for BattleTech, uh, and I have pretty much all of the armor maxed out. This guy actually has more armor than what my Atlas has, believe it or not, and even being 10 tons lighter. Um, but as far as firepower goes, this guy puts out 337 points from a Alpha Strike. My durability is my structure is 691 and the armor is 1640. Heat efficiency is my heat sinking is 63 and my Alpha Strike generates 65. So this guy too can pretty much pump out round after round after round Alpha Strikes, which is pretty incredible. Um, so on his right arm, I have a Gauss rifle. In the right torso, I have a large laser plus plus plus. I have a double heat sink. I have 2 medium lasers, 2 bins of Gauss ammo, and a normal heat sink. I have a cockpit mod with a 3 injury resist in the head. Center torso, I have a gyro with minus 30% stability damage, and I have a heat exchanger. The heat exchanger generates minus 10% for all weapon heat. So that means that for all of your heat, you generate 10% less, and that is not affected by the environment. So that is a constant. I actually have in another one of my mechs, I have a heat exchanger plus, which generates 15% less heat, and that's pretty nice. In the left torso, I have my LRM 15. I have 2 double heat sinks and LRM ammo. And in my left arm, I have an SRM 6 with SRM and LRM ammo. Then in both of the legs, I have a double heat sink. And this guy here, this is another one. I would say this is almost on par with my my Atlas. This guy is a beast, even being 10 tons lighter. It's a beast, and it has a wide-ranging variety of weaponry, all the way from extreme all the way up to standard. It can touch you no matter where you're at. As long as it can sense you and it can get a bead on you, it can hit you. It has LRMs, it has the Gauss rifle, they have extreme range on them. Then I have large lasers, I have medium lasers, and I even have SRMs. So this thing has weaponry for every type of engagement, for every type of encounter, and it also does really good as far as melee. So, I mean, it's right under an Atlas. It does 115 points damage for melee, so it's pretty substantial. So, I mean, this guy is pretty rough and tumble, can pretty much hang with everybody, and can even go toe-to-toe with an Atlas, even though the Atlas is pretty much the king of the battlefield, hands down. So anyways, guys, those are my favorite mechs. Those are what I typically use on a regular basis, and there you go. So anybody who has any kind of comments or has other builds that you guys like, let me know. If you have builds, if you don't like my builds, let me know what you think are wrong with them. I'm always open to new ideas. Um, I realize everybody has their own play style, and some people have different views on certain things. But like I said before, this is just a game, and everybody approaches it a little bit differently, and some ways work better than others for other people. But I don't necessarily think that there's any right or wrong way to do anything. So, anyways, that's what I normally use. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you ring that bell and hit me up with a like. And if you're looking at this on Twitch, feel free to follow me or subscribe. Anyways, so this is Rumple Foreskin 74 signing off for now. I hope you guys liked the video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.